Sweet the whispers in your ear whenever Ember wanders near.
In regards to the new Wolverine game coming out, so Rev put out a video about the Wolverine game devs basically having a quote-unquote mental health crisis after the connection to Sweet Baby and Concord is revealed, which, as a reminder, we knew that Sweet Baby Inc. was involved in Wolverine and Insomniac back when it was announced. You know, I'm not sure why they're freaking out about this as being revealed, because this got revealed, I think, like 2 years ago, realistically. So I'm kind of curious what they're flipping out about now, but, well, let's find out.
Hey, what's up guys, Riff here. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Wolverine game and the backlash it is facing. A lot of people are dubbing this game Soyverine because everything to do with this game and its development is incredibly woke. In fact, this game really has the woke trifecta with ex-Concord character designers, a lead writer who writes literature for LGBTQ teenagers, as well as, of course, the connection to Sweet Baby where they're receiving consultation from that disgusting group, and all of the
Yeah, like we saw the Mystique character model in that cutscene on Side Scrollers today. I've briefly seen Jean, and it's like, Jean doesn't look good. By the way, Jean Grey is supposed to be a smoking hot redhead. That's literally Jean. Jean is one of the smoking hot redheads of Marvel, and she's not in this game. And I also don't like the fact that it's like nobody knows anybody. They said like, oh, we're gonna do a game where the X-Men don't exist, yet they're going to have the game where Team X does exist. Like, bearing in mind, like the team that Logan is a part of, with Mystique and with Maverick and with Sabretooth and with Wraith, that's in the comics. That's in the Marvel comics. That's part of Logan's history, is he was part of a special forces team called Team X. So they're going to have Team X in this game, but they're not going to have the X-Men? Like, it sounds an awful lot like they're picking and choosing what they want that does already exist in the comics versus what doesn't exist in the comics. It's like, that part is just like, oh, the X-Men don't exist. It's hard living life as a mutant. Mutants are hunted. It's like, again, it's sounding like a bunch of SJRs that basically want to capitalize, that they basically want to take an existing very popular property and just like SJR all over it again. Isn't Red Rogue also she's a redhead with a skunk stripe in her hair. She's a redhead with that white skunk stripe down the center of her hair.
Backlash they're facing is very ironic because just a year ago, they were mocking criticism of their game, but now in 2026, they are running to the media to get puff pieces like this, trying to generate sympathy points for their team who is going through a mental health crisis as a result of being criticized on the internet. Now, before we get into...
Okay, then you can't, then don't be on the internet. I'm sorry, I'm tired of coddling these infants. If they're going through a mental health, like, if they're like experiencing like a literal mental health crisis because someone says mean things about you on the internet, cool, get off the internet or don't work in the industry. You're working in an industry of creating video games that are under public scrutiny. If you cannot handle said public scrutiny, then you can't handle being in this business. Simple. It's literally as simple as that. If you get so butthurt by what is said about you on the internet that you literally experience a quote-unquote mental health crisis, which, by the way, I don't buy that for a second, then you can't be in this business. You do not have a thick enough skin to actually function in this business. Go put the fries in the bag.
Everything involving this Wolverine story. So I wanted to share a quick update on my latest merch campaign. As you can see, this limited edition merch collection with Uwu Market only has 3 days left. Now, I'll show off some of the components of this campaign, but the only part that was a fundraiser goal is this Acid Wash t-shirt. And as you can see, we are 250% funded, so thank you guys so much for the support on that. But we have this t-shirt. We also have a hoodie as well, because it's an Ooh Market merch drop. They always have a hoodie. There's the design of that. There's also a hat, as well as this XL mouse pad. I know you guys are a big fan of mouse pads, especially from Ooh Market. And of course, there's some more affordable options in this drop as well, with the jet tags and the standee. I'll put a link to this campaign in the pinned comment and description. Please check it out. The support on this is not only
Red's got some nice
appreciated
merch
for the campaign itself, but it also helps ensure future campaigns with companies like Ooh Market as well. But let's get back to the content. Ladies and gentlemen, Insomniac Games is producing their Wolverine game, and there are so many red flags, it's actually hard to keep track of everything. Number one, a reported budget of over $300 million. Can you believe that, ladies and gentlemen? Apparently that's what
Yes. In this day and age, yes, I absolutely can believe that budget. That's one of the biggest problems in the gaming industry these days, is they are doing these explosive budgets for these games, and then they're losing their shirt because they're doing 300 plus million games, which I was going to get there. That's not including the marketing either. Okay, this is not including any marketing that they've done either. And then they go Pikachu shock face when they make, at best, an average to middling game, and it doesn't earn back the money that they spent on it. Or worse, they make a shit game and they Pikachu shock face that they didn't earn their money back. Like, these explosive budgets is one of the reasons why we're getting shit games. Okay, some of the best games in recent memory had a budget of maybe half this. Because a lot of this money is going to do nothing jobs. That's a key note there, is that, like, how many people are employed here and what are their jobs? Because there's one of the things that Xbox was supposedly doing with this new shakeup, where they basically gutted 25-30% of their entire staff, getting rid of like a total of 3,200 people over the course of the next year, is there is a bunch of redundant jobs that were do nothing jobs. They serve no purpose. So how many people that worked on this game were employed in these redundant or do nothing jobs, but they still got paid, and so that's where the budget comes from. And that's even before you start going into Sweet Baby Inc. consultation fees, which is, God help us on that one. So honestly, like, if you start trimming down, if you start making these quote-unquote AAA games, and you start halving this budget, and making these devs actually put their heart and soul into making a good game, you will see an improvement. When you don't have mountains of cash that you're throwing at devs to just put out a lukewarm product at best, then, and you actually start cutting the budget down, going, you only have this much money to make the game, make it a good fucking game or you're done, you'll actually see devs start buckling down and trying to actually make good games. It's ironically, and the same thing goes with movies, where movies are getting like $400 or $500 million budgets, and they're making absolute shit movies. The entertainment products writ large that have been some of the most successful entertainment products in that particular industry's history have done so on a shoestring budget. Why? Because you had people that had a love of the game or a love of the craft, and they had to get creative to put out the story or the game that they wanted to put out. Shoestring budgets breed innovation, which breeds greatness. And that's what the entertainment industry at large needs to get back to. They need to get back to that shoestring budget that pushes devs to innovate and to stretch their dollars to make something great.
Takes to produce a AAA game in the year 2026. Think about games like Pal World, for example, a budget less than $10 million, and yet they have made so much.
Bingo. My point exactly. There is my point exactly. Palworld had a budget of $10 million. They probably had a small dev team, but because they had love and passion for what they were working on, they made something great. That's what the games industry needs to get back to. Small teams, small budgets, and a fuckload of passion.
Revenue and had so much success. But apparently games
Yeah,
like
Expedition
Wolverine,
33 as well,
they have to
Baldur's
have a
Gate.
$300 million budget to even exist. But of course, the writing was on the wall with this game because of its connection to Sweet Baby. Before they
Yep.
locked down their account,
Yep.
Sweet Baby proudly announced that their consultation services were hired by Insomniac Games. A very, very bad look. But then again, you start looking around at this company and its development team, and
Yeah.
it just makes so much sense, doesn't it, ladies?
And this is all of them now. This is all of these dev teams now. Every time you get a dev team that's making a quote-unquote AAA game, and they do a photograph of the dev team, it's all the frickin' same. Every time. I was thinking the same thing. I'm not even sure about this person in the middle either. I'm not going to speculate at this time.
Ladies and gentlemen, on top of that, as reported here, 3D character artist who worked on Concord at Firewalk Studios and got fired now works at Insomniac
Well, that
Games.
explains
After
a
Sony
lot.
shut down Firewalk following Concord, Patrick left the studio and later returned to Insomniac Games, where Patrick had previously worked on some projects. Users think she designed some characters for the upcoming Wolverine game, and you know what?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And also,
Yes, it does. By the way, can I also point out Mystique, another smoking hot redhead in the comic books industry that's getting fucked over with uglification. Like, how many of you guys have actually seen what Mystique looks like in the comics? Not in the movies, not in this shitty video games. How many of you have seen what Mystique looks like in the comic books themselves? Like, I will show you. And I mean old school Mystique. I'm not talking about like new school Mystique. Okay? Let me see if I can find, like, here's one. Here's one. That's old school Mystique. Okay, this is a good image of old school Mystique. Let me see if I can find her in her original costume. Here we go. Old school Mystique in her costume. Let me even get this into a new page. This is old school Mystique in her costume. Smoking hot. Okay, Mystique was a smoking hot redhead with blue skin. And she was gorgeous. And this is what we're getting for Mystique now. Like, I don't know why these SJRs are coming into the comic book industry, comic book and gaming industry. I don't know why they're coming in and thinking it's a smart idea to uglify them. I know why, because they're SJRs and like, well, we want them to look realistic, so like the uggos can basically put themselves into the character and go, oh, she's just like me for real. When that's not what sold the comics and what sold the games in the first place. These people are so desperate to basically, they're so desperate to try and change the zeitgeist. They are doing everything they can to try and change things to prove the sex sells line is wrong. They're doing everything possible to try and prove that wrong, and all they're doing is they're proving, no, it's 100% right. There's a reason why that saying has sustained itself for literal decades. It's because it's true. Sex sells. Sex will always sell, no matter how much these screeching SJR uggos wish it wasn't true. It will continue to be true. But this is them attempting to try and say, like, see, it's not sex that sells, it's girl bosses. No, it's not. And we'll see how well this game does when it comes out. But the characters are like the character designs can be very incredible. I still don't like the voice actor for Wolverine. I still do not like the person they chose as the voice actor for Wolverine. I think his voice is way too smooth. Wolverine's voice is supposed to be gravelly and growly. And the clips that I've seen of this game, he does not sound it. Yes, like Steve Blum would have been, like, he's done Wolverine. He's a great Wolverine. Why didn't they use Steve Blum? And I can tell you why, is because they were like, we want to do our own thing. That's why they made this game without the X-Men, where no one knows each other except for Team X, and they're basically doing like an Ultiverse version of Wolverine. Because they wanted to do their own thing.
Upcoming Wolverine game, and you know what? That makes a lot of sense. And also, the designs are abysmal, but there are confirmed they-thems in this game, absolutely diabolical.
Me.
But on top of that, one of the lead writers for this game is someone who produces LGBT novels for black teenagers.
God,
yes, that is the lead screenwriter for Wolverine. Are you sure that this game's not going to be woke? I mean, it's an absolute joke, and of course,
no, it's going to be woke.
You start looking around at some of the scenes and the dialogue. You have Wolverine here on his knees, begging to be saved by a woman, of course, with Mystique.
Okay, so now this was the scene that I talked about that we presented on Side Scrollers, and where I gave an alternative viewpoint, is because, you know, Wolverine's line when he does that is like, are you gonna finish this, or am I gonna finish this? And he's saying it like kind of in an annoyed voice right before Mystique opens fire. And like a possible scenario here is, again, Logan has heightened senses. He would have smelled that this was Mystique right here. He would have known her. He knows her scent. He would have known that it was Mystique. And so a possible explanation for this scene is he's just like, okay, Mystique, go ahead and take care of my light work. Go ahead and be my bitch and take care of my light work for me. And I like, granted, we have no context of what led up to this scene or anything like that. So I could be completely wrong, and they could absolutely just be like girl bossing it where he just gives up. That is absolutely a possibility. I do not know. But those factors do, you know, that is a factor that come into play. Is he would have known Mystique is standing right there. He would have known how skilled she was, and it's possible that he may have been like talking to Mystique without looking at her, saying, okay, do you want to finish this, or do you want me to deal with that? And then Mystique fires off. We don't know. I have no context for the scene, so like people saying like, oh, he's on his knees, blah blah blah. There could be some context that we are not seeing here, which is what I was talking about. But who knows?
With Mystique, this whole thing makes no...
By the way, she's too thick. Look at her hips. Look at her body. She's too thick. Mystique is, yeah, she's too square. Mystique is slim and athletic. They're making her too bulky. They're making her way too fucking bulky. Even in the armor, she looks way too fucking bulky.
This whole thing makes no sense. You can see some of the tweets.
Look right there. She is way too wide in the waist. Her waist is like, look at her sides and her waist. For the character of Mystique, she looks too wide. She looks too wide and too thick. Mystique is slim. She is like, Mystique is like a hard body. Yeah, especially in her natural form.
It's responding to this clip saying, okay, let's see the scene. Wolverine, who is almost indestructible, is on his knees being subdued by 4 random enemies. Mystique.
Okay, that's something I have to correct. People keep saying this. Wolverine is not indestructible. I've been seeing a lot of comments about this, and they're getting it wrong. Wolverine, like I've heard, oh, Wolverine's bulletproof. No, he's not. Wolverine is not bulletproof. He has an adamantium skeleton. The rest of him is flesh and blood, but he has a healing factor. He has a very fast healing factor that allows him to heal from any injury almost instantly. So he can regenerate, he still feels pain. If the damage is significant enough, it can stop him for a moment. Losing his head will end him, except you can't take his head off. His skeleton is adamantium, you can't cut through it. See, you can't take his head off. That's kind of the relevant point. So yeah, he heals really fast. So they're mischaracterizing about the indestructibility, that he's bulletproof, blah blah blah. He's not. Like if they dumped a magazine into him, then he would go down for probably a few seconds while his body regenerates before he'll get back up. Like, that absolutely can, and that's how, whenever he's been, like, captured in the comic books, that's how he's been captured, is they basically just, like, mag dump him until he's basically on the ground, and he has to heal. He needs several seconds to heal, and that's when they'll subdue him. So does he have adamantium at the time in the game, or is it still about? It should be adamantium in the game. I don't think, they said this is a different one, so I don't think they're going with before he received the adamantium. The game, I think it's starting with it already, like lacing his bones and his claws. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, someone said that Mystique is supposed to be bigger than him. Yes, Mystique is taller than him. Mystique, I think, is somewhere in the neighborhood of like Mystique is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 5'11", 6 feet tall, and Logan canonically is like 5'3". Which he's not going to be in this game. That's another thing they do. Logan is canonically only 5'3". In this game, he's probably going to be like 5'10", almost 5'10", 5'11". And Mystique is canonically, I think she's 5'10", if memory serves.
Mystique, empowered with a man's face, reveals her identity and lunges to save him while Logan stays on his knees, doing nothing. A guy who's basically immortal is on his knees because we need some chick to come save him for some effing reason. And also the screenshots coming out from this game are just diabolical, ladies and gentlemen. What?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of these. We've seen a couple of these screenshots. This soy face, no. That's been a very valid criticism. The faces they have Logan making in this are fucking cringe as hell. They're doing Hugh Jackman. No, don't insult the Hugh Jackman Wolverine that way. By the way, the Wolverine game that came out probably about 20 years ago, that was based on the X-Men Origins movie, is looking better than this. And by the way, Hugh Jackman did do the voice acting for that game also, and it looks a hell of a lot better. That game looks a hell of a lot better than this one does, I must say.
A waste of an IP. But on top of that, you can see Smash JT here reporting that Brittany Morris, this writer we're talking about, well, they're already out of a job. Yeah, apparently they left in 2025, and they claim it was for their own personal reasons. But you can see not only the classic hashtag open to work, many such cases, but you can also see that people are seething about this. All Smash JT here is doing is just reporting on something that literally happened, and you can see proposed notes being filed against this tweet, saying this tweet is a violation of X's terms of service, as this is his second post trying to monetize and quote-unquote report this situation. I mean, I've never seen seething like this. Apparently you're not allowed to report on something multiple times, otherwise the modern audience is going to try to note your tweets and get you demonetized. But of course, the modern audience isn't just in the notes, they're making posts, trying to shill for this game, saying, I don't think the new Wolverine game looks bad, I think y'all are just complaining to farm for followers, which is...
Have you seen the video footage where there's literally a quick time event for him to pop his claws and soy face? I'm not kidding, by the way. That's an actual part of this game. Wolverine, like, gets ready to pose. The game wants you to push the left and right bumpers just so he'll pop his claws and soy face. And it's an attempt to recreate the cover art from a previous Wolverine comic book, and it doesn't work. It does not work.
Is very rich, coming from someone with a blue check mark who is literally outrage farming for pennies on
No, I'm not
social
kidding.
media. But of course, Hirohei called this. He said this in a previous post, saying next, gaming journalists will write about how evil gamers are hurting innocent devs because they just want people to unquestionably consume product. And that's
Of course.
exactly what we got.
Okay, let's be real. This was not like a Nostradamus moment from Hirohei. All respect to Hirohei. Everybody knew this. Because we are humans and we understand pattern recognition. This has been what gaming journals have been doing for the last 10 years. Is they are like every time a game comes out for the modern audience, the gaming journalists always write about the quote-unquote evil gamers hurting our poor sweet innocent devs. That has been the pattern for the last 10 years. So it's not like this was not at all unexpected. This was 100% expected. At any time, people, or in specific, people with voices, criticize a game, immediately the game journals are jumping to white knight the devs instantaneously. If you get someone like Rev, if you get someone like Hirohei, if you get someone like Nerdrotic, if you get someone like Drinker, if you get someone like Az, if you get someone like Disparu, if you get any of these people with loud voices in the space that are criticizing a game that is due to come out for very legitimate criticisms, the mainstream game journalists will immediately start white knighting and start saying that these evil chuds are being so mean to these poor innocent dads that are working so hard to make such a wonderful product for the modern audience. This is not new. This has been happening for years. It's like, yeah, Hirohei called it, but everybody's called this.
Want people to unquestionably consume product, and that's exactly what we got. GameSpot with this article saying Marvel's Wolverine is another victim of the internet's endless gaming negativity. And they got hit with a brilliant note saying the article cites a University of Toronto study as finding that X's recommendation algorithms favor high engagement, inflammatory, and polarizing posts, but the study makes no such claims.
Side note, what have I been saying about social media algorithms? What have I been saying? I said it yesterday during the collab with the Glizzy Gals and guest. What I have been saying this, that the social media algorithms push high engagement, wild, polarizing posts specifically for the clicks. I've been saying this.
On top of that, you can see people saying Silence Brand with some previous articles from this outlet, like inspirational Anita Sarkeesian becomes playable Towerfall character.
Oh, for God's sake.
Another hood classic like Silent Hill F's reception proves why its feminist messages are so important. And of course, you can see some people pointing out the previous tweet made by Insomniac Games, mocking backlash. You can see distortion. The woke media shapes the narrative to change gamers' opinions. When are we going to see accountability from Insomniac Games? They laughed in gamers' faces. They made a $305 million budget game with recycled PlayStation content from other games.
What?
Woke First Studio.
Wait, recycled content?
The replies roasting GameSpot here, saying, "Holy F, the trailer sucks. It isn't that deep. Weird how everyone loves other games, but not the DEI's Sweet Baby games. It's like it's a consistent and predictable pattern."
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe people are tired of paying nearly $100 for games that play worse than games that came out 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Shut up and consume products. Wow, GameSpot, spare me the Wolverine is a victim framing. Insomniac is a business selling a product. GameSpot is a business covering that product. And the customers are people expected to hand over the money. The relationship gets awfully parasitic when games media starts protecting publishers and studios from the very audience both businesses depend on. Studios need coverage, access, hype, and favorable narratives. Games media needs studios for access, content, clicks, interviews, previews, and relevance. Then, when customers push back, suddenly the customer is the negative one, ruining everything. No.
I.e., these people are in an industry effectively of customer service. And they get pissed off when the customer is not pleased with the service. So instead of like saying we need to correct so our customers please so they will give us money, we're going to insult the customer and demand they still give us money. And they Pikachu shock face every time their studio shut down because people are not giving you money.
We are here to protect the feelings of corporations or the access pipeline of games media. You make products, you cover products. We judge whether either of you are doing a good job. If the criticism is wrong, rebut it with evidence. Stop treating paying customers like the disease in an ecosystem built entirely around extracting their attention and money. Tired of this crap. Here's another one saying, these are the same people that treated Palworld and Crimson Desert so poorly, now clutching their pearls, that real people don't like their HR lady game for games journalists cope and see.
And by the way, back to this. Notice the trend here. Palworld and Crimson Desert. They basically, the games journals like dumped on Palworld and Crimson Desert indie studio projects, but they gobble the cock of the AAA studios. Now, why could that be? Because they want the access. Because if they can get access to the AAA studios, then they can put the AAA studio names in their articles to try and get more clicks on the articles. Because let's face it, if you see a games journalist article, and the article is about Bethesda, it's about EA, it's about Ubisoft, it's about Marvel, whatever. If it's a known studio, you're more likely to click on that article, which will get them ad revenue. If the article is written about an indie studio that nobody's heard of, then, and you just write a normal piece about it, not inflammatory, you just write a normal review piece about it, nobody's going to click on it, you're not going to get any ad revenue, the journalist doesn't get paid. That's why these journalists gobble the cock of the AAA studios and they dump on the indies because they're playing to the algorithm. It's not only the AAA studios pay more, and yes, they pay for the reviews, so they're basically buying their positive publicity. That's 100% correct. But at the same time, they're also trying to play the algorithm. So if they dump on the indie studios, that is generating drama, which will trigger the algorithm, which will generate potential clicks. If they see an inflammatory news article title, regardless of what the studio, if the studio is known or not, people are going to click on that. So they'll dump on the studio that the indie studio that no one has heard of to gain clicks on it. And then they'll gobble up the AAA studios and capitalize on using their name to put in the title to generate clicks. That is how games journalism works in the modern day. It's all about what can we do to get more clicks, to get more ad revenue, because the reality is games journalism as an industry is dying. Nobody gives a fuck what a game journalist has to say anymore. Nobody believes anything a game journalist has to say. Games journalists nowadays are simply farmed as content by streamers and YouTubers like Rev, like Hero, like me, like Nergrotic, like Drinker, and we farm them to show how fucking stupid they are. That's literally the only purpose they have to even exist anymore. Nobody's actually looking at game journalist articles unironically because they want to know what's happening. Absolutely no one does. You know where people go to for games reviews? They go to YouTubers. There are a host of YouTubers across the platform that will provide you with an honest take on a game when it releases. Now, that number is shrinking. There are more and more of these big YouTubers that used to be big-time game reviewers that have basically fallen down the DEI, SJR rabbit hole, and their opinions can really, people have figured out that you can't trust them anymore, but now you basically have to, sort through the wheat to get to the chaff. And then you still have the mainstays that are very well known for doing reviews of games and doing honest reviews of games of, is this good? Is this bad? Is it mid? There are plenty of YouTubers that review games that will say, you know what, it's not a fantastic game, but it's not a horrible game. It's mid, but it's fun, and it's priced it's got a reasonable price, so go for it. There are still plenty of those out there.
Here's another one. How about making a good game instead of pandering to purple-haired weirdos?
Yeah.
This game...
Wait. Hold on. Please tell me that this is not supposed to be Nick Fury. I don't know who this character is supposed to be. Given the eye patch, I am terrified right now that this is supposed to be Nicolette Fury. I think this is Lady Deathstrike. This one on the right, I think, is Lady Deathstrike. The clothes look like her costume. I'm terrified this might be Nick Fury. I don't know, but I'm worried.
Weirdos. This game is going to be awesome. Or hear us out, it sucks, and you are paid to say it doesn't. But at this point, I think you guys understand there is something very off with Soyverine over here. This game has basically everything that writes for a recipe for disaster.
You think it's
right?
Calypso?
The
It
Sweet
could be.
Baby Connection, woke writers, Concord character developers, somehow all coming together for this absolute amalgamation of disaster where they are clearly going to drop an absolute stinker with this game. And of course, the journalists are shielding them at Insomniac Games. And this is only the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. You are apparently the bad guy. You are the villain in this entire arc. You're the problem by criticizing the decisions and the quality of content behind this game. That's the absolute state of not just games journalism, but also the gaming industry in 2026. But for now, that's going to do for this video. If you enjoyed, please consider giving the video a like, consider subscribing, and turning on notifications for daily uploads, as well as multiple streams every week live here on YouTube. But overall, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is gonna be a shit show. They asked me on side scrollers, am I gonna get the game? I do have a new PlayStation that I got for my family that I keep here for when they come to visit, and I still do have a PlayStation account that I can always log into it on. I don't know if I'm going to waste my money on it.